Good afternoon. I trust everyone is well. My name is Charles Scott. Welcome and thank you for allowing the time to join us today for the second of this three-part Civil Designer Software version 9.0 launch mini-series. The last webinar in the series will take place on the 8th of May, planned as a client Q&A webinar. As attendees of this webinar series, we will be directly emailing you the version 9.0 download link after today's session. The new Civil Designer version 9.0 includes over 120 new features and functions, mainly emanating from our industry partner software developmental program and future feature requests we have received via our various support channels. Once again, please allow me this opportunity to sincerely thank everyone who contributed to the development of the new Civil Designer version 9.0. A great deal has taken place since the release of our last version, version 8.5, with Civil Designer entering new markets across the globe, being represented by authorized resellers. Our industry has evolved via the adoption of BIM, now followed by digital twins, and our team at Civil Designer has welcomed 6 new staff members across the various departments. In software development, Monique Vermaak and Rolf Simon, both civil engineering graduates from the University of Stellenbosch, and Devin Block, a mechatronics engineer from the University of Cape Town, joined Darby's dev team and have all made several significant contributions to version 9.0. In sales and support, we welcomed Alex Casalembo and Justin van Rensburg, respectively, both civil engineering technologists. And in training, Patrick Neal, a former lecturer from the Cape Town University of Technology with over 35 years of experience, has taken over our training, facilitation, and content management portfolio. This combination of youth, extreme talent, and experience that the above 6 members have brought to Civil Designer immediately began paying dividends. We have always understood that you need to deliver your projects on time with the least amount of stress. That's why intuitive design features, time-saving quantity calculation tools, ease of collaboration, and built-in production and presentation tools have given Civil Designer the edge over any other industry software alternative. In version 9.0, we have gone the extra mile to develop these strengths further, giving you a truly dynamic design experience. Once you put this version to the test, you won't want to use anything else for the civil infrastructure design component of any project. In today's launch webinar, Cameron Boyle and Andrew Cole will be introducing the version 9.0 highlights from our earthworks, roads, stormwater, foul water, and potable pressurized water modules. During their time today, please feel free to use the text chat service on your GoToWebinar app or webpage to ask us any questions you may have during their time. After today's webinar, we'll post a video copy on our website in the webinar section. So good afternoon again, gentlemen. And Andrew, please take it away.
Thank you, Charles, and welcome everyone to this version 9 webinar. Today I'll be showing you the new features and enhancements in the survey and terrain module, as well as those in the sewer and stormwater modules that have been added in Civil Designer version 9. As we are limited for time today, I'll only be able to show you some of the main features, but we will post videos for the other features that we don't have time to cover today on our website. So let's get started. A new survey and terrain function in Civil Designer version 9 is the load strings from file function, which will allow you to copy terrain strings from one Civil Designer project into another Civil Designer project. So for example, in this project in view on my screen, if I go to display settings, you can see under the string settings over here, multiple platform strings in this particular project, which I would then like to transfer across to a separate Civil Designer project. I've already loaded 2 of those platform strings into this separate project. So just running through the process, it's under the File menu, Load Strings from File. And then you've optionally got 2 ways of doing it. As far as the file formats go, you can use a current version, Civil Designer 9 version of the file, the string files, which are then incorporated into the structured storage file. And then if you're working with older version files, you can select that. That would be the individual string files that you can then select from. So the new updated Civil Designer now, all the files are incorporated into the one file, the DTM file, which is now DT9. The older versions, those string files were all separate files. Let's just have a look at that. This is from the 8.5 version of this project. So I could, for example, bring in a couple of those. So just using my control key, I can select a few, open them up, and then I would be able to import them directly. I'm just going to cancel this particular import, and then I'm going to do the full import. So this would be for the individual files. Okay, so just repeating that function, load strings from file. I'm going to use the current version, and it's this multiple string. So this is the new version, the DT9 file. Just open that up, and then it lists all the strings in that particular project. Okay. I just wanted to use this method to show you. So in this case, I've already loaded that block H and the main platform, two strings already in this project. So it's highlighting it in red to indicate that there is a conflict with the name. So I could just deactivate those two and then just bring in the rest. Okay, so in this case, I can just bring them across. Okay, so those are all the additional platforms. Those colors, remember you can just double click and change a color for a platform in the properties bar. The validate model function has been made much faster, and the ability to fix certain validation errors has now been built into the validate function. So now, whilst running the validate model function, you can scan the sites for duplicate points and have them removed as you would normally do with the server application's editing remove duplicates function. You can also check your site for crossing lines and have these removed, and additionally you can check the site for outside perimeter errors that might occur after, say, using a polygon clip, and then have the triangulation fixed on the perimeter. So a couple of options, and you don't necessarily have to validate when running these additional functions now in the validate model operation. So just removing duplicates. Let me just run that quickly. So I get an output in the output bar. So you can see the speed as well has been improved. Just using my spacebar to repeat the validate model function. So I'm looking to fix some crossing lines. I've identified in this case one crossing line. I picked that up with the shading of the surface. I'm running these individually, but you can run them simultaneously, all of those fixes. Okay, so fix crossing lines. And you see that line now get removed. And then model validate model one more time. I just want to show I've got a outside perimeter issue. So sometimes when you use the polygon clip, you would find that the triangles around the edge of your surface are not nicely connected. So I'll just fix that issue. And you've got this option then to ask me first. So it'll actually zoom into the area and it'll ask you for confirmation to fix it. So let me just run that. So picked up an error, and connecting line not found is the error message. Potential fix is to remove the highlighted line. So I'm just going to proceed with that. And voila, those few errors were causing my shading to not actually happen. In Civil Designer version 9, we've given you more control over your contour elevation labeling. So a new feature under the terrain menu is this contour labels and add label line, which allows you to position your contour labels exactly where you need them. So firstly, you would specify which surface you want the labels on, and then you can define the label position by clicking on your screen. And this function just repeats, so you can position additional contour lines wherever required on your surface. Okay, and then you would then additionally have an option in your display settings, so just the traditional contour display settings. We now have a option over here to uncheck the traditional space labels, and then you'd only see the user-defined labels visible on your screen. So something like that, and then you would be able to add additional user-defined labels where required. We've added functionality which allows you to extract cross-sections from multiple DTM surfaces in one go. We need to make sure that those terrain surfaces are visible and active. I'm just going to go to my control center over here and activate those additional surfaces. So it's the phase 1 surface, the phase 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 as well. Okay, so now we can extract those cross-sections using the normal terrain cross-section extract function. So by default, we've got a ground, an intermediate, and a hard material option for extracting cross-sections. But if you want to add additional surfaces to extract from, you've got this add extraction option now. Okay, so I'm just going to name them phase 1. Let me just copy that. And I'm going to just add for up to phase 5. 3. Just copying and pasting. It's 4. And then phase 5. So I've just used the spacebar to repeat the function. So phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that I'm going to work with. So phase 1 now I need to set the surface. That's phase 1, the terrain surface, extracting that to road layer 1. Okay. Then 2 be to road layer 2, 3 to 3. Phase 4, so that's phase 4 to road layer 4, and then 5 to 5. Okay, you've got options here to remove, so if you don't want to use that particular cross-section extraction surface anymore, those particular settings, you can remove it, or you can rename an extraction surface as well with this option over here. So I've got those 5 additional surfaces that I'm going to extract from. So let's just run that. You can see that in the preview, those additional surfaces that have been extracted. And just going back to roads, so we can view that section, graphical edit. So now you can see all those cross sections that we've extracted. So phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So a nice new function to extract cross sections from multiple surfaces all at the same time. In Civil Designer version 9, we've added the option now when you create a string, a terrain child string, when designing your string platforms, to create a string on a partial range. So just a portion of the initial master string's length. So for example, I've got this existing string platform in view on my screen. And if I select partial range, I could select the string and then a start vertex and an end vertex that I want to apply the child string to. just verifying the correct selection of vertices. And in this case, I'm just applying a drain, let's say a V drain, on the top side of my platform. So I could select my string operation type, a horizontal and vertical. I'll just go negative 0.5 vertically, and then a 1 meter offset horizontally. Okay, and then just repeating that. So it's strings, string creation, create child, the partial range again. So I'm just doing from the same start to end vertex, always reading your prompts, verifying the correct range, and then this time I'm just going to do the other side, so vertically coming up on the other side of my V drain. Okay, let's just refresh the render view. So you can see the V drain running around the top end of my platform. Okay, and then to complete that string creation, create child, if I wanted to tie back into ground again, I could do the full range, and I could grade to surface now. Okay, and then just is to refresh. Okay, so just tying into ground again. Let's see how that tying on the side. Okay, so I drain and then tying into ground again. In Civil Designer version 9, we have added a new report quantities function, which allows you to keep track of all the terrain module volume calculations that have been done so far in your project. All calculated volumes are stored to a database, allowing you to review and total these up at any stage. So looking here at the terrain menu right at the bottom, we've got this new report quantities item. As you can see under this all quantities section, all the terrain volume calculation types are listed. And the number of each calculation that has been performed so far on this project is listed over here in the brackets. So 1 dam volume, 1 curb quantities, 4 string volume calculations, for example, have been performed so far. If I just look at the dam volumes again, you can see importantly we've added a timestamp column for all the calculation types. So you can keep track of when exactly any specific calculation was run, making sure that you're always looking at the latest calculation results. Okay, under the curb quantities over here, this is one of those new Civil Designer 9 functions where you can add curbs to a terrain string. So looking at the string volumes over here, you can see we've got 4 calculations done on the string platforms, but 2 of them are for the same platform, and that platform hasn't been edited, so those would be identical. If you had ever made changes to the platform and then recalculate the volumes, you can then keep a record of both of those with this new report quantities. Okay, and then 1 terrace volume calculation has been recorded here in this all quantities section. So whereas the all quantities section gives you a historic listing of all calculations that have been done, the latest quantities section will only list the most recent calculation result for each volume calculation type. Okay, so for those string volumes where we had 4 and 2 of them were for the same, you're only seeing the 3 most recent that were recorded, so the most recent for that top platform. Okay, and then the total report section allows you to create custom volume reports where, for example, you can see cumulative area and volume totals for multiple platforms. So this current report is showing the cumulative totals for the 3 string platforms. Sorry, I didn't mention, but if you want to view all the detail. You can resize your dialogues, or you can scroll to the right to view the additional columns. There has been a major rewrite of the sewer and stormwater applications for Civil Designer version 9. Looking at these project files for this version 9 project, you can see there is one structured storage ST9 file for stormwater, and then one structured storage SE9 file for sewer. These structured storage files also contain all the other reference project files, like your inflow hydrographs, pumps, reservoirs, and storm files that would be linked to this particular project. And when any of these files are missing, we can then use the cached version of the file from the SE9 or ST9 file. So big advantage there with the structured storage files. And then a few benefits just to mention of the rewrite of sewer and stormwater will be a lightning fast analysis and more accurate and precise hydraulic calculations. In Civil Designer version 9, we have implemented 3 new sewer inflow calculation methods, namely the unit hydrograph inflow method, the AADD or average annual daily demand inflow method, as well as the flow and peak factor inflow method. These new methods all use categories for various land use types, as have been defined in the updated and revised Red Book's sanitation section. The revised Red Book is now called the Neighborhood Planning and Design Guide. So looking at the sewer module and under the Edit Design Parameters, if you look at the inflow calculation method, you'll see that the unit hydrograph and the flow and peak factor methods have been added to the previous methods. The unit hydrograph method incorporates the AADD method, that average annual daily demand method. Okay, so I'm going to look at the unit hydrograph method first. Again, then just looking at the land use categories under the edit menu. So these are the land use categories and the various subcategories as defined in the Red Book. If you want to look at the various unit hydrographs, then you can click on the ellipsis next to the unit hydrograph name. And this unit hydrograph parameters dialog would pop up, and you'll see over here the flow parameters for each hydrograph can then be seen. And then you can also look at the graph, which shows the dimensionless hourly flow factors, which are relative to the hydrograph peak flow in liters per minute, which we just looked at. Okay, so when running an analysis, you've got the inflow methods to select from. You have the 2 unit hydrograph inflow methods to choose from, the PDDWF, the peak daily dry weather flow, which allows us to design for the day in the week with the highest flow. And then the other method is the AADD, the average annual daily method. The average annual daily method uses a percentage of the land use units water usage as the sewer flow. Additionally to selecting the inflow method, you'll be able to select the inflow type that you're going to use for your analysis. The options over here are the peak daily dry weather flow or the average daily dry weather flow. And then you've got the instantaneous peak dry weather flow or the instantaneous peak wet weather flow. For the average daily and peak daily dry weather flow, You have the options to select whether to use the unit peak daily dry weather flow in kiloliters per unit per day, which comes from the unit hydrograph settings as per the Red Book, or alternatively you can use the average of flow option, which gives you a slightly lower total flow result than when using the unit peak flow. You will also be able to include infiltration into the system for all of these methods. You can see the infiltration settings, but it's only with the instantaneous peak wet weather flow that you can then include stormwater ingress. So this would then take additional inflow from stormwater runoff into consideration. We now model all overflows in a link type. This now allows you to model two outlet links from any one particular node. And if the overflow link diameter is set to order sizing, the program will then size the link based on the flow. So just to illustrate how that works, I'm going to go edit, so graphical edit data, and I'm editing this node over here. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm going to change the overflow node to this particular node over here, 1000, that I've pre-selected. Close that. Okay, and you'll see the overflow node is now visible. So just to illustrate now how that would then analyze, or how the program would then analyze that and size the link for you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to graphically edit this link over here. Okay, so just results wise, you can see the flow is 204 liters per second. So I'm going to just set a control there, maximum flow in the link. Let's go make it 100 liters per second. And then quit. Can escape. And then I'm going to run an analysis now, so we can see analysis network. Next. Renumber, recalculate. So we're restricting the flow in that link. Just to show you now, so program has sized the link, and there's that remainder of the flow after restricting that flow. The enhancement that a lot of our clients have been asking for to automate their bill of quantities has now been added in Civil Designer version 9. We now allow you to report your excavation lengths and excavation volumes per link name, where traditionally we've done it by link type output. So let me illustrate how that works. I'm going to graphically mark only this branch so that we can view both the lengths and excavation volumes on one sheet. Okay, then I'm going to run the quantities just for that branch. And then the way to output the quantities by link name will be to use the file print sewer data function. And here under the excavation quantities, you can select the lengths and volumes. And then you have the traditional link type output, but now you have a link name option, which is the one we're going to use in this case. I'm just going to write out to an ASCII text file. Just overwrite this quantities per link name file. Okay, and then from within Excel, I'm going to open that text file that I've just saved. Finish and open the file. And then you can see the excavation lengths and volumes listed per link name. So that's all from my side today. Cameron will be up next with the roads and water module enhancements. So over to you, Cameron.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Impressive stuff. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. As Charles mentioned, this will just be a summary of some of the functions So I won't be able to show you all the roads and water functions, but I do need to show you quite a bit, so I'm going to get started straight away. If I go to the roads mode, I go to File. There is an option to load roads from File. That will include version 8 and version 9 of Civil Designer. I also need to mention that in version 9, all the roads will be stored in one RD9 file. One of the many benefits of this is that the file will include cached versions of all templates, components, and curbs used. So if shared files are missing, the cached versions can be used. Next up, looking at the Select Roads file dialog. The road dialog has much more usability enhancements. It's no longer necessary for the user to exit this dialog and then go through the design process to find out what design entities were used for the individual roads. All the roads are listed. You can see where you haven't kept to your particular standards and which roads are incomplete. These question marks will be updated once the design is run. On the left-hand side, if you've got a road selected, you go and click on the zoom. It will then zoom into that particular road. You have the option to recalculate your selected road. When you do go and select that option, all roads that have ties to your selected road would also be updated. You have the option to select multiple roads by pressing Shift on the keyboard and then selecting the delete option. Road segments function has the added ability to split roads at odd changes, which was not possible in earlier versions. As Evolution Road is incomplete, I'm going to select the control panel. This first dialog looks very much similar to the previous version, but you'll see now that we've got extra over excavation. Now, with my layers already named, if I go to that extra over excavation, your standard, intermediate, and hard layers are already included, but we've made it easy for you to add additional custom layers with the ability to calculate quantities all in one go. Let me show you how it's done. If I go and call this granite, I can go and specify which DTM surface I'd like to use, which cross-sectional layer to use, and then specify its own search distance for surveys that might not be as detailed as others. Let me show you where this will appear. If I click on OK, go into alignment, horizontal, cross sections, extract. Again, you are afforded the opportunity to already specify if you want to include extra over excavations here from the start of the design instead of doing this individually, looking at the intermediate, the hard, and the granite that we created. Each cross-sectional set can have its own settings. It's easy to go and add additional extractions here, rename them or remove them. If you go and select a road layer that's already been used, Civil Designer will warn you thereof. The extraction volumes will be listed when calculating your road volumes in the usual way. Changing my zoom view, we've improved the graphical user interface when graphically inserting the horizontal PIs. To show you this, I'm going to Alignment, Horizontal, Graphical Insert. By default, the first PI is indicated as start point, and thereafter it will change to end. Selecting the correct snap mode, going to my first point, left click. Once I've inserted the start point, you can see the insert as is now an end point. Putting in my PI points. The rubber band is fixed on the last point. If I do go and change that to a start point, and I click on the green tick, that rubber band is connected to the start point. I'm going to left click and insert my new start point. Changing the insert as option, making it a PI number, I do have the option of updating that information, putting in my radius, and then clicking on the green tick. We now display rubber banded bearings and angles while moving the HPIs to display the dynamic dimensions. Changing my snap mode, and then insert in the new PI point. Right click and finish. If I go and edit my alignment, those points have been inserted. I can go and update or make changes to the provided information. Closing the vertical alignment, Civil Designer automatically picks up that we have a junction possible. I'm going to specify the bar mouth radius. Press enter, put in the cul-de-sac radius, press enter. During the recalculation process, I am going to go and switch on the extra, intermediate, and hard extractions. I've chosen to include this cyan sidewalk as part of the template. You can see how easy it is going to be to update that information at a later stage. Looking at the vertical alignment and going to my display icon, version 9 gives you the option to display DTM and strings. I've also decided to turn on the DTM for the intermediate and the hard extraction. That additional string that you see over here that I designed using the strings functionality, if that string intersects the position of your vertical alignment, it can be included in the long section. I'm going to insert some cut and fill. Please don't pay any particular attention to my vertical alignment design. It's purely for demonstration purposes. I also haven't switched on the design criteria. And this is so that you can see what the cross section looks like in a cut condition. Looking at the fill, closing the vertical alignment and recalculating with the new elevations. As far as the cross sections are concerned, I'm going to section graphical edit, specify where I want to see the cross section. In earlier versions of Civil Designer, in order to change the editable cross sectional layer, you had to go and select this icon and then change the active line. In version 9, you can go and double click on this tab at the bottom. It will also go and update the pen color of the active layer. In version 9, if you want to jump to a particular chainage, you can press G as you did in previous versions. Alternatively, you can go and double click on the chainage tab, specify a chainage, and then enter. Just to show you what the road looks like in cut using the intermediate and hard extraction. Previously, I mentioned that with my template, I inserted a sidewalk. Not sure if you can see the additional width here representing the sidewalk. I no longer need to exit the cross section and then go to the template editor to make changes to my template. I can simply go and double click on the template tab, delete my component, close the template editor, and save it. The template definition has changed. Do you want to apply the updated template? When I click on yes, you'll see the plan view update with the new template information. On the subject of templates, in version 9, you're able to have dual carriageway templates with 4 different grades. You have the option now of selecting multiple roads and making changes to those multiple roads all at once using the properties bar. If I make my output bar bigger, I can select properties at the bottom, choose I want to change my single carriageway roads, and then make the appropriate changes. In our case, I'm going to select our individual road, go and update your curve interval. And while we're here, I'm going to go and update the left edge width. Pressing enter and then recalculating. If I go to area volume, mass or volume, take note of the additional information at the bottom here to include the extra over volumes of excavation and if you want to include the granite or not. Click in on calculate and then results to output. On the right hand side where we opted to see the results, the extra over volumes for your intermediate and hard is included. We've added the ability to specify cul-de-sac from CAD entities. Before I show you this, I'm going to go to my CAD layers. I'm going to turn on the layer that we utilize to put in our cul-de-sac. This is an ideal function if you want to go and put in car parking lots with unusual shapes. Going to junctions, edit junction, selecting the junction I want to edit. In addition to the previous types, we've now added the option from CAD. When you select from CAD, you then go and select indicate. Preferably you want to have a CAD polyline to go and select. Once selected, right click extract string. Just to show you what the preview looks like. I'm then going to go and add my curb and then click on OK. Many of our clients have requested a function to dimension the roads dynamically. With this function, the dimensions will update if you make changes to the road. We go to alignment, strings, add linked linear dimension. As I move my cursor closer to the road, it jumps to the nearest string. Once I'm happy with the position, left click, move it to the second position, left click, and as I move my cursor, the dimension will follow. Looking at the width of my road, once I've clicked on the first point, I do have the option of specifying a fixed angle of 90 if I want the dimension to be perpendicular to my road width. Looking at these curves, if I go back to alignment, strings, add linked radial dimension, specify 3 points on the vertex of the arc, move in the position of the dimension. Same thing for this line. And then looking at the last one. The last thing I want to show you is the ability to create polylines from your road design. If we go to alignment, strings, generate 3D polylines, and whichever road is current would have polylines created from it. Going to my road display settings, turning off evolution road, you can see the new polylines have been created. That is unfortunately the only time we've got to show you some of the roads functionality. But before we leave roads, I need to mention we've improved the auxiliary services head wall rendering. In other words, we snipped out the road banks where the head walls from auxiliary services are drawn. We've also added the option to display your head walls in 2D. As well in the rendering, we've snipped out road surfaces where manhole lids are present. We've improved the IFC export of layerworks where we've made provisions for sharp bends with your road layer works. We've done a huge amount of work on the horizontal regression functionality where we've added a manual regression function. Be sure to check out our FAQ page for a lot more detail on that. But for now, let's move on to the water module. Going to File, and then selecting my water project. Selecting the water module, we've enhanced the water route functionality. Going to graphical define pipe route, reading my prompt, it says indicate start node. And I go and select a node, and look what happens on the top here. The node ID is presented. Now I need to go and indicate the end node. I'm going to go to the far side. The sequence of pipes between the indicated nodes using the shortest pipe route distance is selected. Reading our prompt again, I can indicate a via point. I'm going to do that, go and click on a via route. The route is then updated. I do have the option to remove that via point. Alternatively, I could go to either the start or the end node, click on this new browser option, and then update with a different start node. With everything selected, I'm going to press Z for zoom, S for selected. You now also have the option to increase the diameter slider to change the pipe route so that it prefers to choose pipes with larger diameters. This is useful when the shortest route is along secondary smaller diameter pipes, but you'd like to create a route along the main pipes. As I go and move the slider, look what happens to the selected pipes. It will then be updated. I can accept the route and give it a particular route name. Click on OK, right click and quit. If I zoom in, the change values are presented. In version 9, we have additional valve functionality. If I select my valve, right click, go to water operations, edit valve data. There's a new operation type of time where you could go and specify a different value compared to the default opening value. I'm going to update those values. This could be used, for example, between 6 and 8 a.m. for water limiting during peak hours. In this scenario, the valve will be completely open or 100% open, except during the time specified where the valve will be 75% open. To show you an example of a demand pattern with these peak times, I'm going to close this, go to Tools, Catalogs, Demand Patterns, changing to demand pattern number 5, and then look in between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning. That is where this demand pattern reaches a peak. In version 9, we also give you the option to select these demand factors, right-click, write to CSV, specify where you want to go and save it, and then go and add a new demand pattern where you could then right-click and select Read CSV file. Select the one we've just written. You could then go and customize your own demand patterns. Moving on to additional functionality with pump stations. I'm going to select the pump station, go to Water Operations, Edit Pump Station Data. There's added functionality to this dialog. Looking at pump station has bypass. Bypass is an invisible pipe which runs parallel to the pump station and contains a non-return valve. It allows flow around the pump station where pumps are off, but pressure on the upstream side is higher than pressure on the downstream side. Further down the list, we have the option of run dry protection. This run dry protection can prevent damage to pumps when water level in a reservoir falls below safety requirements. During the analysis, if a level in an indicated reservoir falls below a specified level, all pumps will be switched off. If the level in the reservoir recovers, the pumps that were running will be switched on again. There are two options in this case to select the reservoir. You could either click on the down arrow and select one of the reservoirs available. Alternatively, you can click on this browse button and you'll find that a lot of the water entities now have this new option where you can click on the icon and then graphically go and select the water entity. It will then be updated accordingly. In previous versions, the end user had to enter ID numbers of nodes or reservoirs, for example. With this new browser button icon, the user can graphically select the required entity. In addition to this, there are enhancements to pump pressure control, selecting controls on top and then pressure control. When pumps oscillate between on and off a certain number of times, the pump will now either stay on or off according to which option is selected. In certain scenarios, typically pumping into a reservoir, the pump should preferably be stopped. In other scenarios, typically pumping directly into reticulation, the pump should keep running. The last water function that I want to show you is the water losses menu. All of these functions have been updated. In addition to that, we also have losses by group. Before I show you that, if we go and select settings, you now have the option to set your losses by infrastructure leakage index, or ILI. If you'd like to find out more about this, please visit our FAQ page. This is applicable to the entire network. If you'd like to specify your losses by group, you go to losses by group, where you can either go and specify infrastructure leakage index, and the losses information will be updated by selecting the supply ILI. Alternatively, if you'd like to specify your volume of losses, you could go and select apply volumes and the ILI will be updated. The last thing I want to show you is if we go to water losses, you have the option of graph. This has been updated to show you the comparison between your residual head and your losses. As you're moving your cursor at the bottom, you can see the values update. You can either do the entire network or you could do it per group. That's pretty much all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for joining us. Until next time, cheers for now. Back to you, Charles.
Thank you very much, Andrew and Cameron. That was excellent. But more importantly, thank you very much to all of you who attended today's version 9.0 webinar launch. As it was impossible to cover all the new functionality added to version 9.0 by Davy and his team, and just as difficult to select which functionality to include in our webinar series, please visit our website right now, where you'll find a list of all the new functionality included in version 9.0 under the About pull-down menu. As mentioned earlier, an email including the Civil Designer version 9.0 download link will shortly be sent to all attendees of the last two webinar sessions. Please check your inbox in around the next 30 minutes. Should you require any further information with regards to today's demonstration, please use the email address listed on your screen right now. Once again, thank you very much for your time today. See you at our next webinar. Have a great afternoon and goodbye for now.